June, get ready. You're going to your auntie's.
I don't want to go to my auntie's.
You're only going to be there a few hours.
No, I don't want to go there because my cousin always messes with me.
But tell his mama.
Hey, this is Lejeune, Mind, Health, and Wellness with Lejeune. Today is December 28th. We are honoring the life of my cousin. Her birthday is today. She died on Mother's Day of this year, which was a tragedy for me, her cousin, her best friend who's here with us, Angel, her son, and many who loved and adored her. We're also going to talk about grief. We're going to talk about health. We're going to talk about overcoming on this day. So I would like to welcome her best friend, my friend, Angel Malone. She is a business professional, creative, and wellness advocate with a bachelor's degree in business administration and a major in computer information system. Welcome, Angel. Welcome, girl.
Oh, June. Hey, girl. Hey.
Can you give a background on yourself for the people get to know you a little better?
Okay. Well, I'm Angel. Originally from Jonesboro, Louisiana, where LeJune and our friend, we all grew up, went to the same high school, everything. Finished college, moved to Texas, where I've resided over half of my life. I have spent the last almost 13 years raising my nephew, who's now 19, and headed off to college next month. So I'm about to be an empty nester. Uh, I work in the real estate industry. I've always been in real estate, mortgage, something along those lines for most of my career, and just been keeping busy, getting prepared to be an empty nester now.
So, with that, a lot of people go through that process. For you, mentally preparing, because right now, it's different for you because you lost Lynn. Now he's leaving. How are you preparing yourself for this transition?
Of course it's hard, especially on the cusp of losing her so recently. We just lost her in May, like you said. So I've been kind of trying to do something I always had a problem doing, focusing on myself, kind of readjusting all this attention that I've given him. I prepared him for the world, so now it's my turn. So just trying to come up with things for myself. What's the next chapter for me? It doesn't end. So what's chapter 2 or 3 or whatever course I'm on right now? What's going to be next? How am I going to keep myself occupied? Losing my household roommate as well as losing, a best friend and everybody else I've lost this year. What's the adjustment? How am I going to pivot? So I've been really focusing on kind of what's my next chapter. Right now, it's just more self-care since I always have a problem taking care of me too. Just spending my time, getting those massages, meditating, praying more, doing a lot of wellness things, just kind of reconnecting and trying to get my health on track, mind on track, spirit on track. So just totally refocusing to see who is Angel going to be in 2026? Who is Angel going to be in this next chapter? So it's kind of time to be selfish.
100%, because I think we as women, especially women of color, it's hard for us to be selfish. Back in slavery time, we've been that to so many people of being the help, being the person to assist with things, being the person that always showed up, being the person that took on the world on our backs and wearing that cape in so many levels, and we didn't know how, or how to show up for ourselves, because it was, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do that. And we learn to busy ourselves instead of being still and sitting down, which can be scary for a lot of people. So, you went through that with your own health battles of things that's going on, and then seeing what happened with her. Can you kind of talk about that?
Well, it definitely sheds a bright light on how women, African American women specifically, are seen in the medical industry. For me specifically, I have been battling with doctors for probably well over a decade of not being believed. When things were simple, you notice things about your body. Nobody knows your body like you do. So if I'm going to the doctor and I'm like, hey, I'm usually hyper and active and I'm, busy bee, and now I'm sitting on the sofa and I'm going to sleep after, just like somebody drugged me. I'm passing out for 4 hours and I'm waking up super tired, like out of nowhere. And they're like, oh, you're probably just, you need some more rest, or you're depressed, or, it's all in your head. So just kind of not being believed when you know your body and you know what's going on. And as a woman, as a black woman, it just seems to be that's the stereotype. That's what's happening. There's so many stories from these doctors that I've had. And it isn't until they can put something in your labs or there's something on paper they can say, oh, you're diabetic, you have high blood pressure, or something's wrong, but they're not catching things, warning signs, things that you're telling them beforehand. Okay, yeah. So if it doesn't show up like on blood work or labs or on paper, they kind of ignore you. They don't believe it. It's like you're making it up. If they can't prove it in black and white, then it's not happening to you, and that's not the case. With like again, so many things I've been through with the doctors from I'm tired, I'm this, I'm that, oh, you're depressed. And I've been told I was depressed many times and they do the test and I'm not depressed. I know if I was depressed, I've never been depressed. But they're pushing it on you. Like, oh, I can't sleep. Well, let's give you something for it. But why can't I sleep? What's the cause of it? Or, acknowledge this. I've gone to the doctor in for a checkup and told him that I was lightheaded coming in the office, and she was kind of like jumping to, wait a minute, they gave you that medicine before, and your insurance covered it. Like, we could do that again. And it's like, yeah, you could do it because you're going to get a big portion of that $1,000, $2,000 for that medication. But forget that I got lightheaded coming in here and I could have passed out. That was never addressed in the conversation, even though I brought it back up again. So it's kind of been that type of thing, not being listened to, over the years, and having to be my own advocate, almost having to be my own doctor, and reading probably 50 to 100 books, listening to podcasts, YouTube, trying to figure out what was wrong and what was going on with me, because it wasn't the typical, oh, I'm diabetic, oh, my blood pressure's high, my cholesterol. It's like, what is it? It's something different. But nobody was willing to dig to figure out what it was. And in that same course with Lynn, hers was she knew what was going on, but they didn't. The doctors weren't as well educated. She did go through some problems, with uterine, like an enlarged uterus. Once they figured out, okay, we'll go ahead and take that out and take care of everything, they did find cancer. And finding cancer post-surgery, because they didn't know she had it pre-surgery, but post-surgery, her going through that, they were like, oh, you have cancer. And it was a very rare form. It was one of the sarcomas. If I'm not mistaken, it's leiomyosarcoma. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it was leiomyosarcoma. Yes. And so that is more so a cancer of the uterus. They called her a unicorn because it's super, super rare. And I have a little cousin who just got through battling one of the sarcomas. The thing with those, they can grow in one place and they can quickly spread. They don't just spread, they jump. So if it's in your uterus, you think, oh, it's spreading to your stomach or to your ovaries or something. No, it could jump to your pinky toe. It could jump to your brain. That's the thing about it, and why it's so dangerous and so aggressive, and you have to keep an eye on it. They did the surgery, found out she had it. He told her, "Oh, I got it all," and didn't want to do any more testing, didn't want to do any more scans. So we were talking. It's like, no, he needs to check that because we had already did all the research to see how aggressive it was, how rare it was, how quickly it could move throughout your body. So I'm like, no, he needs to get you a scan. Took her probably about 30 days to finally get him to do it. Once he did, he said, "Oh, you're cancer free," and she was so happy, excited. Looking back now, though, he told her she had some fluid and cell growth, minor cell growth, probably an infection. Gave her some antibiotics, and that was it. As a oncologist specialist, you think you'd recognize and know those things, but unfortunately, that was probably the beginning of it. That was stage one because that is kind of how it grew and formulated. The cells in the tummy continued to grow into tumors. The fluid continued to build up. So that was the very beginning stages of it. And it just kind of continued without her knowledge because, again, he told her she was cancer free. And she said, second chance at life. And that's how she started. She began living her second chance, doing everything she wanted to do in the short span of less than 2 months. Um, After celebrating, just enjoying everything, getting healthy, eating organic, fit, just doing everything to give herself the best life going, forward in the second chapter. Um, it just out of nowhere started back. The stomach pain and swelling and symptoms. So I'm like, maybe it's just a, side effect from the hernia. Maybe it came loose again. She called the doctor, did not want to do anything. It's probably just, gas. Just take this medicine. She's like, no, it's not that, but I'm going to take it. Give it a day or two. Call back, it's not that. Well, it's probably an infection. Take this antibiotic. Took the antibiotic. It wasn't that. So finally, after a lot of, pushing, he finally agreed to do it, and that's when she got the diagnosis. And unfortunately, it didn't help then because he did not give her a stage, which changed the trajectory of how she proceeded with her treatment. He gave her hope. He gave her no information other than fight. And that's what she did, but she chose her own path because she had no clue how far along it was. And he, pretty much didn't let her know how far along it was. And pretty much from there, there was an additional um, maybe about 2 months, and that was kind of the end. So it just pretty much solidifies even more so. Not all, but a lot of the doctors, they don't listen to us. They don't take into account what we're going through. They didn't listen when she asked for scans. She had to really, really push. They didn't listen when she said, no, this is not, something simple. This is not an infection. This is not anything I've already been through. So they don't listen to us. They don't.
I know she definitely, because I was going through stuff during that time, and she knew, and she definitely didn't want to add on to it, but she would always say, "My tummy's hurting. My tummy's hurting. I can barely eat. I can't eat. I can't stomach to drink anything."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, go to the doctor, find another doctor. If that doctor isn't listening, go to somebody else. Your stomach just doesn't hurt this long span of time, and there's no answer to why your stomach is hurting. And every day I would text her and I'm like, how's your tummy? And she's like, it's hurting really, really bad. And I'm like, okay, you gotta go see somebody. I don't care who it is. You gotta go to the emergency room somewhere. You gotta see somebody. Um, and I've experienced that myself where I went to my primary doctor and I knew something was wrong with my chest and I had went to the emergency room. I didn't do a x-ray the last time because it was so late and I was tired. I went to my primary. I said, "Hey, I need a chest x-ray." The first thing she says to me, well, why do you need it? Because I think I have pneumonia. Oh no, you don't have pneumonia. You're not coughing. You don't have a fever. That's the signs of pneumonia. I said that's not the signs for walking pneumonia. I've had walking pneumonia several times. I know my body.
Mhm.
Get the X-ray. I immediately make an appointment with because when I went to the X-ray place, I said, give me the code because they give you a code and you can look and see what your results are.
Yeah.
I immediately made an appointment with my pulmonologist because I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I see that it says that I had a nodule on my lung. Go to my pulmonologist. He's like, yep, you got pneumonia. Do you know I still haven't gotten a phone call from my
Mhm.
PCP? And
Yeah.
that was, I want to say that was August, September. I haven't gotten a call. I went again after my car accident and I asked for no, she said she was sending me for a CT for I think it was my neck and shoulder.
Mhm.
That I still don't have a call.
And that's
still
how it goes.
still still don't have a call. But one thing my ENT always says to me, because I've gone to my primary for like ear infections or sinus infections, he says get a referral and always go to your specialist. Don't go to your primary. And if you don't feel comfortable with that provider and you feel that provider is not listening to you, find somebody
Yeah.
else. And
Yeah.
it is a headache because the time it takes to find somebody to see if they take your insurance and all that, and if they're accepting new patients, it's a headache. But trust me, if it makes you here longer, do it.
You gotta do.
Because they don't listen, and it's so sad. Now we're in the era where it is hurry up, tell me why you here, let me figure out what prescription to write you
Mhm.
and send you on your way. And that should not be the case. Please listen to your patients. Please, instead of trying to get money from the pharmaceutical company, listen to
Yeah.
your patient. Help them be here as long as God is willing for them to be here. Don't
Exactly.
just write the prescription.
Mhm. And to piggyback on what you were saying with the continue to try to find a doctor that helps. I have probably I can't count. My phone messed up, so I lost a lot of numbers. But I would say just even in the last probably since COVID, I've probably had 50 doctors, if I lightly estimate, if I count just the doctors I've seen trying to figure out what was going on up to now, it's probably easily been 100. So when you say keep trying until you find someone, I'm still trying. I'm still trying. I'm not giving up. And I've had, just to backtrack, most of my problems started, I now know, and also know through a lot of research I did on my own, I originally had an autoimmune issue, um, Hashimoto's. So, long story short, what it was a combination of, and I know we're going to get to grief, but there was a lot of grief. Stress as women, as people, that was a big factor. Working in environment as a contractor, we get pulled in and they may put us in the building to help out for a couple of months or a year. That building may have been vacant for a year or two. There's dust. There may be mold. There's all kind of things you're breathing in. All the things we have in the air now. All that started affecting me, and little triggers started. And again, when these little things are going on, I'm going to the doctor. I'm talking to them. What's going on? It's again not on paper, so they're not realizing it. From there, pretty much it continued with little things over the years, and it took a long time for it to actually become a thyroid issue because I was eating healthy, because I was always doing nutritional things and trying to just be healthy until I figured out what was going on. But the topper was I eventually stress took over again and a little more grief, layoffs, just a whole lot of life happening. And those major triggers started making things physical. then I start having some physical ailments. And it's like, what's going on? This, and that. They're like, oh, it's probably arthritis. Let's check. Oh, it's not arthritis, but we don't have any answers. And I've gotten so many, we don't have any answers. Let's do this test. Let's do this procedure. We don't have any answers. So what it was the autoimmune from all those bad things I mentioned, the air quality, grief, stress. It's slowly attacking your gut, and it's breaking it down, and your immune system is 80% in your gut. So you have to take care of your gut, and you can't stress, and you have to eat healthy, and you have to know your food triggers and all these other things. You have to have a perfect balance because your gut has a whole ecosystem. And what literally happens is the good bacteria is there, but it gets taken over by the bad bacteria. And then it creates almost these spaces in the lining of your tummy where vitamins and food can get through, so you're not absorbing the vitamins that you need, and that starts trickling down, leading to other minor issues again that they're not addressing at the doctor's office. Eventually, glucose became one of my triggers, and the glucose molecule, I was told, resembles the thyroid, and the thyroid let it in, and it shouldn't have been let in. But our body is amazing because even though this thing is attacking my thyroid, the thyroid encased it in what's called a goiter. And anytime that gluten or those toxins came to the thyroid to attack it, it pretty much grabs it, puts it in that casing, and it keeps it there. But the problem with that is if you're not healing emotionally, you're not healing from stress and grief, you don't know what that food is that's triggering you. Mine was cow's milk and seed oils and gluten. So if you don't know that and you're constantly getting it in your system, that's also attacking it. And so after so long, your thyroid is growing and growing with this bag of toxicity in it till eventually it gets to the point where your neck is huge, you're having any kind of symptoms. Some people can't swallow. It starts cutting off your airway, just a multitude of things. And I literally had to get my thyroid removed for that. It was my right side. They thought both of them had grown together. You have two thyroids. They thought both of mine had grown together because they were so big. They got in there, and it was actually just the right side. It was about 5 to 6 inches long, pretty big. So your neck is not that big to have something so massive going across. And it weighed a couple pounds, too. So it was already cutting off my breathing. It was hard to sleep in any position other than one at night. The fear that sets upon you. You're not supposed to be stressing, but can you imagine how much fear you have with this thing? If it shifts one way, then there goes your oxygen. So to go through that, that's another layer of stress. Finally getting it out was a godsend. Wonderful. It took a little while to recuperate and kind of got back on the right path, and then things took another turn. So I don't know if we'll continue, but if you want me to, I'll continue with that. But that's kind of where it began, the thyroid health. And what you were saying, I've seen so many doctors. I saw up to 4 thyroid doctors, which are endocrinologists, and been told, oh, take this, do that, take this pill, and I take it, and it causes a whole nother effect of things that weren't wrong with me. It messes up other things in your body. And then I get another one, and then that doctor is so trigger happy on a prescription that may help, and they figure out your insurance covers it, let's do that, even though it's not a help. You're telling them, I can't take that because I have this. It says it on the commercials, don't take this if you have this. A doctor told me not to take it, but sometimes it boils down to the financial part of it instead of the person in front of you. Like I was saying earlier about feeling faint at the doctor's office. You just have to be your own advocate. And I would say if you notice anything different about your body, like Lejeune said, you continue to push and go to those doctors and find somebody to go to an internal doctor, go to a functional medicine doctor. If you can afford to do holistic, somebody can figure out answers, and you just have to find the right person for you. And like you said, you can't give up. You can't give up. I'm still working on it. I've learned, you listen to them, but you have your own discernment too, because you know your body. You know your body.
Oh yeah, because that's I think one of my previous clients that I work with on Christmas, she I texted her and wished her a Merry Christmas. And she told me she was in the hospital and she's had so many issues in Illinois with the medical staff or whatever. She was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. She has her heart, she got a device put in, and it was a pacemaker, and it was just like shocking her. And I was like, it sounds like it may be defective. She goes back to them and they tell her, oh, it's absolutely okay. And it still wasn't helping her heart at the time. I think her heart went up to 40%. And then I think at some point it went up to 75. So now they're telling her, because she passed out one of the same thing you're saying, all these medications. She passed out, hit her head, hit her mouth, ended up in the emergency room. And it was also a time that she texted me. She left her doctor's office, went in the bathroom, passed out, and she literally died. They had to revive her. Um, and they sent her home the same day. And it was like, wow. And I'm saying to her, I'm like, I think you need to find somebody else. And she's like, well, there's not a lot of doctors in this area. Wow. That's, and it's a small area. Where she lives, it kind of reminds me of our town.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, this is sad. Like, we can't find at least one person to
Mhm.
show up in the way that we need help. Especially, I feel like with women, we need more help and we need to be heard more, opposed to we continuously are being ignored or pushed out. And I think for a lot of individuals, they don't question the healthcare provider, especially if they're undereducated. They feel like, well, you have more education than me, you know more than me, but don't nobody know your body like you know your body.
Exactly. Exactly. That's so true. That's so true. And like you said earlier, with Lynn, with her tummy hurting and how they weren't listening, nobody knew. She knew. She knew what she felt. She knew what she had dealt with post surgery. I knew something was going on with my neck. Oh no, your thyroid levels are fine. On paper, everything was fine. It was always normal. That's why I was depressed and something was wrong with me and I was making up the symptoms because nothing showed up on paper because it was still functioning normally and it functioned normally and I didn't lose it because it wasn't working. Like most people stop working and you had need thyroid medicine. No, that wasn't my case. My case was the toxins were being encased in that in within the thyroid and they were growing and growing and growing and growing.
Mm,
And all they're looking at is blood work. Had they just taken a moment and touched my neck, felt around, they would have known, okay, something is in there, that shouldn't be in there. And it took
right.
me probably 6, 7 years before a doctor looked at me from across the room and I told her what was going on and she didn't believe me. She actually kind of sat in her chair and she was a bit cocky with me and that I had been to the doctor because she's looking at me and she could see my neck isn't normal. And she's like, there's no way you've been going to all these doctors and they're looking at you and saying you're okay with your neck the way it is. And I was like, yes, they are. So she didn't believe me. She's like, well, when did you go to the doctor before me? And it had been like a month. And I was like, I went to this doctor. They tested me for this, this, and that. And she's like, what about before that? And it had been like a month before that, a totally different doctor. They tested me for this, this, and that. Before that, the emergency room, they tested me for this, this, and that because I had like heart flutters and I felt weird and I didn't know what was going on. So they did all the heart tests, heart perfectly fine, labs perfectly fine, all of my equilibrium, everything, my cells, red blood cells, everything was good. But nobody put their hands on me to just touch my neck to see if there was something going on in there. So she couldn't believe looking at me that any doctor looked at me and said, "Oh, your neck is fine. You know, it looks like I swallowed a grapefruit, but your neck is fine. You know, your labs are good." And it took her, like I say, this is like year 7, and by then my neck is huge. She's like, "We're gonna." After I told her all the doctors I went to and I lined them up and I was telling her what they tested, she's like, "Oh, there's no way you could make that up and know exactly what they did, and you've done this back to back to back." Then at that point, she sunk in her chair because she realized I was telling her the truth and it made sense. But she could not believe that any doctors would let me sit in front of them and see me with my neck the way it was and say that there was nothing wrong. And their favorite term when you have autoimmune issues, hyperthyroidism, Hashimoto's, when you have those issues, their favorite thing to say is your labs are normal. That word normal, I never hated the word normal more than I did with them because I knew that wasn't the case. I knew something was wrong, but of course I didn't know what. I didn't know what. So that's the bigger problem is it took that long for one person to look at me. And a lot of times that's what these doctors do. I was talking to a friend about how the doctors back in the day, I got to experience an old school doctor not far outside of our hometown. And I remember at 18, little things he told me that I still use to now, like, don't let them check your blood pressure at the start of your appointment. Let them check it at the end. And it was simply because I'm nervous. I need a moment to calm down. But if they check it at the beginning, it's, "Oh, you got high blood pressure." Now I'm on a lifetime of medication. And him telling me that at 18 has saved me from ever being on blood pressure medicine because I wouldn't have known, they're saying your blood pressure's high, they're just going to throw you on some medicine. But I've always known because of him that you have to calm down. Anybody, you can't go in the doctor's office anxious and then not get a moment to sit in the waiting room and they take you straight back. And what do? They take your blood pressure first, your weight and your blood pressure. And it's automatically your blood pressure's high. Well, if it is, you know what? After my appointment, recheck it again once you calm down to be sure before you just kind of jump on medication. There's just so many things we have to, and we shouldn't have to. You go to the doctor, they're supposed to be trusted. They take an oath, to take care of us, to, make sure your patient's safe and take care to the best of their abilities. But we're not getting that anymore. Those old school doctors, to me, and again, I didn't live in that time, but I did get to experience one, and I know, they don't look at you like they used to. I remember he would look in my eyes. He'd check your tongue, look in your ears, check your reflexes, look at your nails, those simple things. You're like, why are they doing that? Well, now I know, you could look in your eye, they can look in your eyes and tell different things. One point I had brown lines in my eyes. They almost looked dirty, and it was the goiter, like really pressing on things. My eyebrows started thinning on the outer edges. That's a symptom of, your thyroid is off. It starts thinning, your eyebrow hair, even your hair. Those little things like that they used to check for. So basic. Your tongue, if you have your white tongue, that means you probably have a yeast overgrowth in your body. So it's simple things like that. Your nails looking a certain way, having white lines in your nails that those doctors used to do. And I honestly, I'm not sure about you, but I haven't, since him, I can't think of a doctor I've ever gone to who's looked in my eyes. Every once in a while they'll look in your ears with the yearly physical, check my reflexes, those basic things those doctors used to look at my tongue. None of them. And those are those little things that are maybe that give them answers that aren't going to show up on those labs. It's not going to show up if you have a white tongue and you got yeast in your gut. That's not going to show up on the lab. Those are things they don't dig into. So we kind of almost have to be your own doctor, and it's so sad that you have to kind of go through that. But your health, we got one life, and as long as it may seem, it's like a grain of salt on a beach, a grain of sand on a beach, because there's many, hundreds and thousands of decades before us, and there are going to be hundreds and thousands after us. So we're one little grain of sand on that beach, and you got one life, like Lynn used to say, our buddy, we got one life, live it to the fullest. So take care of yourself, and it's hard if you're fighting, for your health, and you're dealing with daily things, and you have to deal with doctors who aren't believing you. We got to be our own advocates and not give up. Look for a doctor, look for another doctor, and look for another doctor, even outside of your area. What's the next city over if you're in a small town? Once you go there, what's the biggest city closest to you? Let me try there. If your job pays for virtual doctors, a lot of virtual doctors can help. I had a virtual doctor, a GI doctor. She helped. She didn't know answers, but I had a dietitian who told me what to ask for, and then that virtual doctor found out, was able to determine some things and give me some answers and knock out some things. So just do whatever you got to do. I think a lot of times is black people and black men do it a lot. Some black women too, but we feel like you go and you try to get help and it doesn't work and just kind of give up. Or if you're not getting any answers, like forget it. I'm gonna live, and you just go on about your business, and you don't know if those things are getting worse or advancing, or you could have did something to fix them. You can't give up on your health. As frustrating as it is, because like I said, I've probably gone to 100 doctors and probably 50 just in the last several years, and I keep going. And it's not that I trust them. It's not. I have faith that one is going to figure everything out, and we're going to get this together. And in the meantime, I'm doing the work in between there. I'm not just relying on them. I'm still trying to do things, that I know can do. What can you control with your health when the doctors aren't helping? You can control what you eat. You can control, your stress level. You can control, those things, your body. Do whatever you can do to do whatever you can do to control what you can control. In the meantime, while you consistently seek answers, because I feel like giving up a whole lot of times. I feel like giving up every time I go to the doctor. I've been stuck, and probed and scanned and everything over the last 3 months, almost every week of October, November, and December. I'm like, I have no more blood to give for y'all to try to figure out what's going on. But at least somebody's trying. We've knocked out things that aren't there, but not the things that are. And sometimes it can just be as simple as, reset your body, let the stress level go and see if that helps any. There are some things that can be helped, organically, herbs and things like that without going through surgeries and procedures and whatever else. But just always, we got to be our own advocate.
100%. And you talked about stress, and I think a lot of people don't realize how much stress and worrying impacts our body. I know for me, I've experienced a whole lot of stress and worrying and frustration and irritation where inflammation in your body. It shows up in your body. It shows up and it looks like weight.
Yeah.
So definitely, I've experienced that where people are thinking, "Oh, well, you gained all this weight." No, I gained inflammation because I was stressed the
Inflammation.
fuck out. That's why.
Exactly.
And I'm working on my stress level. My GI doctor, I saw her last week. My physical therapist, they tell me to do breathing exercises. Also, my therapist do breathing exercises to calm my nervous system down because when I drive, that's definitely the highest because I've been hit by so many cars where my
Exactly.
body locked up, my lymphatic and nervous system is jacked up. So it impacts your body. So definitely be mindful of your stress. Don't just think, oh, I've gained all this weight. What does your stress life look like? What are you worrying about something? Are you frustrated? Are you irritated? Are you angry? Those things mess your body up totally. If what is your sleep looking like? Because I had a sleep specialist that I work with, and she was like, you're not sleeping well because your nervous system is out of whack. Your body is in fight or flight mode, and your body doesn't know how to calm down and relax. You never think about that because you think, okay, I just bounced back. I just got out of this. But yeah, when you're in a situation, you are in fight or flight mode, and your body absorbs that, and it's like, okay, are we gonna make it safely? How is this going to end? What is this going to look like? So pay attention to your body, pay attention to those things, don't ignore it. Don't think movement definitely helps a lot. I haven't been able to do as much movement. I've been cleared to start back doing movement, but movement helps because when you don't move, that brain is
Yeah. Yeah.
it's going.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
is going 100%. So definitely pay attention to that, because it affects you mentally, physically, and emotionally, and it is annoying. But please take the time to show up for yourself.
Mhm. And that's also when you like you said, taking the time to meditate, to breathe, and do things like that. That is, it's time consuming. I
Oh
figured
yeah.
that out. It takes a lot to take time for yourself. Another issue we deal with, taking time for yourself, like you said at the beginning of our conversation, it takes a lot to take that time out for yourself. I got some good sleep, but in that process of doing it, I spent like 3 hours winding down. And it's like red light therapy, meditation, prayer, some reading, some this, some that, and it's like this whole process. And it's like, but why not take that? Why is it so hard to take that 3 hours for ourselves? We would do it for anybody else. If you have children, you spend 3 hours with them to do their homework or a project. If your friend needed something, you'd go and do that for them. But it seemed like it was so much time, almost like wasted. But it's not wasted because it's for
No,
you.
we
It's
look
for
at it as
yourself.
an inconvenience. When it comes
Mhm.
to ourselves, we look at it as an inconvenience, and it's like it's you.
It's not.
How are
Yeah,
you
exactly.
inconveniencing you?
Yeah, exactly. And it's that whole put your mask on before you put anybody else's on because you're no help to anybody else if you're not there and you're not taking care of yourself. And I heard something the other day on a TikTok, but she said she had a stroke. This like young girl. She was like, well, not young girl, but there was one that was 31, but there was one specifically who was 40, had a stroke at 39 because of
Mm.
stress. And she said, let that stress go. She said, let him go, let her go, and let it go. And she said, and don't pick it back up. She's like, you gotta let it go because it caused her to have a stroke. And something somebody always told me: stress kills, stress causes cancer, stress causes health ailments. What else could cause something that bad? Yeah, food will do it, but stress will get you before anything you put in your mouth. Stress can get you before any other health thing because it's gonna accelerate everything. It's your body. You're like you said, you're putting your body in fight or flight, and you're keeping it on this adrenaline cycle of panic almost for so long, and eventually it starts wearing down. It's like you're sitting in the car with it propped up, and you're pressing on the gas all the time, and the tires are just spinning, but you're not going anywhere. You're just gonna eventually burn that engine out, and that's kind of what stress is doing to our bodies. We really, really got to take heed to it.
Oh yeah, and inflammation. A lot of people don't know inflammation can go straight to your heart and kill you.
Mhm.
So definitely start being mindful of that, of how your body is inflamed. If you're starting to swell, that's a form of fluid and inflammation in your body. So don't just be like, oh well, I had too much salt. Yeah, it could be that, but and then you got to start looking at, well, why are you eating too much salt? So
Mhm.
that's a sign of, stress, emotional eating. So start
Eating.
looking at that. Um, for you, like you said, you dealt with a lot of grief. And especially in the last, in within this year and prior, and how it's impacted your health and your overall of how you're feeling. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yes. Literally, I would say it started 2012 was the kickoff, and again, when I look back now over the health things and when these little things started, I would say around 2013. So a year after, but so much happened from 2012 to 2013. I lost my mom in March of 2012, but right before that, my dad had to have heart surgery and get a pacemaker like weeks before like before she passed. But right before he had to have that, she was in the hospital for pneumonia as well. And then the month before that, my grandmother was in the hospital. So it was all these things leading up, my grandmother in the hospital, then my mom in the hospital, then my dad having surgery, and then, a week after my dad, my mom, stops breathing and goes through an episode and finding out, that she was literally brain dead and there's nothing we could do. And,
Mm.
my dad allowing, me and my sister to make that decision on the day and going through all that and being there in her final moments and then kind of getting, not say past that, but again, as women, we pick up and take, but who's there next to take care of? My mom's gone, but I still got to take care. I still got to, look out for everybody else. So it's like my dad and my nephew. Now I got to, that kind of, I felt like that's helping me with my grief because I got to make sure my dad and my nephew and everybody else is okay with my mom's death. So I didn't process it like I should have. Of course, I miss my mom. We talked numerous times every single day. My mom was my best friend. And to go and kind of deal with it, I'm grieving, but I didn't process it. I kind of held on to it because you know what? Forget putting my mask on. Let me make sure everybody has their mask on. Let me take care of them and make sure they're good. And then a year, 16 months later, my dad unexpectedly passed. And it was quick and it was, shocking and everything because I was helping him get healthy from the procedure he had right before my mom. He had lost 70 pounds. His health was amazing. And he had been going through some issues with stress. And I was able to kind of cut that off, cut the person off that was causing that stress because, and this is why I say stress kills and causes cancer, he was stressing. He began stressing, his cancer count started coming back. His cancer was starting to return from stress. Soon as I was able to help him cut that out, cancer numbers went down. And they went down so quick that the cancer doctor sent a postcard with a gold star on it. He's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. So stress causes cancer. Stress is just, you're one stressful situation from something coming out that you didn't know you had. So going through that with my dad and, still again, being the helper, being there, making sure he's okay, in every kind of way, him dealing with not being able to work and just pretty much just really, really being there. In my mind, being a great daughter, being a good daughter, giving them, everything they did for me. Who wouldn't want to take care of and be there for your parents? But again, still forgetting about myself. And my dad passed, had to plan his funeral, do everything with that, and we had a lot of help with my mom, but now it's my dad. He has siblings, he has family and things, so they're grieving. So it was a lot of things I kind of had to take care of. And he passed, got him taken care of, and, had his homegoing service. And 8 days after he passed, I lost my grandmother. She was my heart. Back when grandmothers were babysitters and, you stayed with granny while mom and dad are at work. So that was just like the last blow. It was like I'm all drained. I don't have any other emotions. And now it's like kind of these people I'm taking care of and I'm looking out for. I still got my nephew, but my foundation is gone. The legacy of the family is gone. Those branches are gone. And that kind of started everything. That is truly when the health issues kind of, I feel like, started. They were trickling in before because I've always had, stressed about things and, kind of want things to go right. And after my grandmother, I immediately jumped on my health. I got a holistic doctor because I wanted to be healthy. But I noticed the first triggers were digestive issues. Never had digestive issues. I didn't eat anything bad to start having those digestive issues, so it didn't make much sense. I'm eating really healthy. Why am I going through this? Well, that's stress starting to attack, my gut. And so from there, didn't know that though. Wasn't educated on who knew. I didn't know about autoimmune issues. Like, what's that? What do you know? The basics: cancer and diabetes and high blood pressure, cholesterol, arthritis. Those things that have been around for centuries. So I had no clue what was going on, but I knew I didn't feel like I normally feel. Although nothing physically stopped, I'm still doing everything. I'm living life and no physical ailments. But I knew that digestion was off, and it goes on from there to having an amazing career in contracting and the mortgage industry crashing. And now we're getting laid off, but it starts as we're laid off for a week and then we got a new project. Then next time we're laid off a month, and of course we're in contract and we know you have to save and plan for those downtimes, saving and planning. So it took some years, but after being off a week, then 3 months, then 6 months, then 10 months, and eventually 26 months, and not getting unemployment and, not having any backup and applying for hundreds, if not thousands of jobs and getting nothing with no income coming in and, doing everything you need to do to survive, there's another whole level of stress, mountainous stress, and there's a whole another level of grief because I'm going through this. And who do you go to? Who do you call when you're in your worst moment? When you're a little kid or when you're young, you call your parents. Well, still, as a 30-something-year-old, I call my mom. I say hello. She could tell by my hello if something was wrong. So not to have that, not to have your dad, your grandmother, and my paternal grandparents, it's like, what do I do now? And so still continuing to battle health and not knowing what's going on, now unknowingly I've added a whole nother level of stress and grief on top of what had already began. So now here comes the sitting on the couch and just dozing off, sitting straight up for 4 hours. Start going to the doctor. This is not normal. I don't take naps. I don't do this. I don't do that. Oh, again, I go back to where they said depression. You just need to, take some Ambien or something, to relax your sleep and make you sleep at nighttime. Maybe you're staying up too late that's causing you to do that. You're making it up. It's all in your head. And it's like, no, it's in my body. It's not in my head. It's in my body, whatever it is. So continuing with the job struggle, all of that, and eventually taking employment, and it was significantly less than what I'd been making. So here's a new struggle. Now you still have to pay bills, not only coming off a 2-year layoff where you didn't have money, but getting a job and not getting enough to catch up and do things that you need to do to get yourself back in a good position. So you're still scraping by, and trying to get where you need to be. And then getting stuck in that job because COVID hits. And here we go, more and more health issues. Now there's another level of anxiety because with COVID, and at this point I'm starting to deal with the pressure in the neck, the breathing, thinking it's my lungs. I'm thinking something's wrong with my lungs. And with COVID, I can't get COVID. So now it's, what do you do with COVID? What were we doing? Quarantining. We're in the house. So if you're normally out active, getting some sunshine, running around, no, now you're stuck in the house. And that puts you in a different mood. You're stuck in the house. You're not out enjoying yourself. So there's another layer of stress and grief and, discomfort and whatever else you want to call it added on top of that. So with COVID, another onset of issues and things start going wrong with my body because now we got stuck in the house and there's a fear of I cannot get COVID. I can't breathe. I'm having a hard time breathing and I don't know what's going on. So I can't get a disease that's causing people not to be able to, get their oxygen where it needs to be. And then we just kind of trickle on down to now. And here we are this year. And again, I lost my mom, my dad, my grandmother also lost like 2 uncles, some classmates, a bunch of cousins, just a lot of people, a lot of great aunts and uncles. During that time, during COVID, we lost a lot of our senior generation on my paternal side of the family. It literally almost wiped out everybody that would be on the level of my grandparents and their cousins and things like that. So there's a whole nother level of just terror. You're losing so many people. And we move forward to now, and it's like this year has been, I call it a lemon. How you trade your car in, it's a lemon. Feels like we need a trade-in for 2026, but 2025. And the year started off decent. It actually went great. I got a new job. The day I started the job, excitement, finally got a job. I'm back where I need to be. Started the job. The next day, Lynn got her diagnosis of, cancer. So that's right the next day. And then I think the same day, I think her family member. She got some bad news on that too. Her brother, I believe. And then I also found out another very close friend who had been battling pancreatic cancer since October. Me and her talked, daily and checked on her. And, I had no clue pancreatic cancer was pretty much fatal. So still trying to encourage her every day, trying to be there for her, but also knowing that she's not going to be here much longer and trying to deal with that without dealing with it because, you have a friend who knows they're dying. You want to be there for them and you want to be as positive as you possibly can be. So you put yourself again on the back burner and you try to be that friend that they need. And so she passed. And then a couple days later, we're still in 1 week, the first week of April. March, first week of March. And then my grandfather passes. And he passes, and we had discussed extensively how I was going to come visit once I got this job because I knew I would get it. And I waited to tell him because I was going to tell him that weekend, and he passed that weekend. He passed that Saturday morning before I could even tell him. So losing him. So this is the start of March. This is the first week of March. I've already lost a friend, a granddad. My best friend has cancer. And I just started a new job that I'm supposed to be happy about. And it's supposed to be a new beginning, and I can kind of get out of these struggles and hardships. And it's like I can't focus on the joy for the trauma. And then, of course, the very next week marks the anniversary of my mom passing on the 10th. And then at the week after that, here we go. Now it's time to celebrate my birthday, after all this trauma for the month. And then we spend the next 2 months with Lynn battling, fighting for her life, consistently being positive, and having all faith in God that she's going to make it because her doctor said fight. That's it. I don't believe in stages. You just fight. Like everything's going to be okay. And she did just that, believing, that, hey, I'm going to be okay. This is a hard battle. She said it's not for the faint of heart. And she fought and she fought and she fought. And again, on misinformation. And it goes back to these doctors. So there's another level, losing her, dealing with things post losing Lynn. Then also finding out another very close friend passed away in the midst of that this summer. So now we're at 3 close friends and my grandfather. And again, just trauma and stress. And like you said, a car accident, getting hit. There's another level of trauma that kind of starts setting up issues you don't even realize you have. Now it's the fear of somebody's going to hit me from the back, constantly watching in the mirror. Don't want to get hit from the back. So you add all that up and you think of all those emotions and all that trauma and all that stress and all that anxiety. And like you said, body being in fight or flight. That takes a toll on your immune system, on your gut health, and it just literally beats it down piece by piece. But 2025 had a little gasoline on it, so it's accelerating things a little quicker than the past years. So by September, I think with losing Lynn and losing my granddad and my friends, I kind of got a place. She came to me in a dream, and I felt a sense of peace. Like, okay, it's okay to breathe. And the end of September, I'm like, okay, it's okay to breathe. It's okay to grieve, and it's okay to let go. And I think I had been on an adrenaline rush all year and just not realizing it, kind of not focused on it, and you're on adrenaline. You don't feel that pain until you come off that high. And I think the end of September, I came off that high, and things just started pummeling me. It's like, why is that hurting? What's wrong with my knee? Why is my finger hurting? All of these things. And it goes back to what you said, inflammation. Now everything's turning into inflammation. Why did I gain 10 pounds this week when I'm over here juicing and fasting? Like, there's no food to cause me to gain that weight. Why did I gain 10 pounds? Or, last 2 weeks ago, I was at the doctor, and I'm still the same weight, but I feel like I've gained 20 pounds. Inflammation, but I gained nothing. Eating healthy and gaining weight. And that happened in the past. I was juicing and fasting and just eating healthy for months. And it's like month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, all together gained 40 pounds real quick with no explanation of why, because it's like, it's not food. but it was inflammation. But again, doctors don't tell you that. I didn't know that. So that leads us to kind of where I am now, and I've been going through labs and tests and scans trying to figure things out and firing doctors left and right because I'm being told the most crazy things, to do or not to do. And because I didn't want to take a medicine that I didn't need, I was even told by one doctor, well, you don't want to take the medicine, you're going to die. And it's like, how am I going to die? How am I going to die? If I have what you said I have, and I eat healthy, and I take the medicine, not take the medicine, I'm not dying anytime soon until God's ready for me. It's not a terminal thing for me to take this medicine just because you want the money off of it. So that's not the case. And they will say some of the, those terrible things to you. Again, I go back to the oath. Where's the oath? Where's the humanity at, for, the patient? And it's so, so sad. But again, not giving up. Fired them all. I've had a dietitian for the last couple of years, and only because of her and myself and God have I figured out some things and figured out she tries to do, ask the doctor to do this, ask the doctor to test this. And if we can't figure out if it's this thing she thinks it is, well, you know what? It's less expensive to do this, and that. Let's knock out what it isn't. So in this list of whatever these things are, what can we get tested under your regular, insurance without throwing hundreds, thousands of dollars away? Okay, we've weeded out everything that it's not. And then there's one thing left that it is, and it's like, hey, this is the treatment for that. Give it a try. Give it a try. It stops. It fixes the issue, So she's done things and been there to really help guide me. And I also have a functional medicine doctor I just started with, and he is really focused on, let's figure out what's going on. We know also that it's probably, again, autoimmune related. What do we need to do? Your immune system is compromised, it's broken down, it's beat up and all that. So that's where we go back to the things that I've been doing. But I got to amp it up, the stress relief, the meditation, like you said, the breathing, some of the, I forgot what it's called. It's like a Asian movement that are kind of a meditative movement where it relaxes your body. I don't remember the name. Tai Chi? I don't remember.
Oh, yeah, Tai Chi. Yeah, Tai Chi
okay.
is, yeah.
Okay. So those type of things, taking a vacation, taking a staycation, getting a massage, getting a facial, just going to get a pedicure, anything, whatever your relaxation thing is that sets you in that mode. I like manicures, I like pedicures, I like the movies. The movies make me feel like I'm all by myself. There's nobody else around in this dark room. So whatever that kind of peacemaker is for you, eliminating stressful things, eliminating stressful people from your life, and just kind of, working on those things while also putting good things in. I don't know everything that triggers me food-wise, but I do know, dairy, gluten, seed oils. Seed oils are the biggest one. So just trying to work on what I can control within that, and that's kind of where I am right now, working with him, taking a host of vitamins, because the only thing that really comes up on the labs is I'm very depleted of a lot of vitamins. I've gone through thyroid surgery, 2 of them. I mentioned one, but the second one honestly was caused by a doctor giving me medication I should have had that I protested against multiple times. But the problem there was she looked like me. She kept pushing. She kept saying everything with a smile, that how it was going to help me. And literally within 10 days of taking it, my neck ballooned in 3 months to what it probably took 15, 20 years to get to prior. So there goes a secondary surgery 9 months after having the first surgery. And I was doing so awesome after the first surgery. And then to be slapped in the face and put in a tailspin, to be going back through this again, but not over the course of years, but over the course of weeks, going through all that. So that again, more trauma, and that actually accelerated a lot of problems too. When you don't have a thyroid, it helps a lot of balancing in your body, your metabolism, your temperature, your hormones, just a lot of stuff. We don't know a lot about a thyroid. Most people are like, thyroid, where's that at, and how many are there? I didn't know you had 2 thyroids, and something can happen with it, and it's there, and it's kind of invisible to all of us, but it is a major organ. It's just as maybe not as important as the heart, but it's still extremely important because it can balance and throw your heart off. So it is super super important, and we're not educated enough. We don't know enough about it. Um, and a lot of people are walking around like I was in the beginning, just thinking you got a fat neck. And it's like, no, it may not be a fat neck. If your neck is fat and you're tired and your numbers are coming up normal on your thyroid labs, you may need a detailed thyroid panel. They may need to dig a little bit more. There's a detailed thyroid panel that none of the doctors go to at first. They do the simple basic and nothing shows and they brush it off. They did that to me. I had one probably 20 years ago, again 13 or so years ago, and it was like, no, you're normal. Even up to my surgery, my numbers were still normal. There was never anything wrong with my thyroid, but again, this toxic bag of stuff was in my thyroid, and once it's in there, there's no way to, like your leg, you have a mass, you cut it open, you take the mass out, you have a mass in your stomach. No, once they cut into it, it's destroyed. So an organ that was working and fighting for me to protect me from these toxins and things, it had to go just because it was holding and what it was protecting me from caused me to lose it. I never had any. That's why my balancing in labs, everything was always normal, and it was because of my thyroid doing what it was supposed to do. It was protecting my body by encasing all these things. So if you have symptoms, if you know there's something off with yourself, like I said, fatigue, weight gain, just all these things, even your mood and your emotion. Another thing that it did was I started having brain fog. And I'm talking about forgetfulness, and it's not just, oh, we're getting older. You walk in the room and you forget what you came in there for. It's another level of that, and it doesn't feel normal. So look and listen and pay attention to what's going on with you. Don't brush it off with age. We're older, but we're not that old. And it's like, don't just brush it off with age. Take care of yourself. Put your health first. When nobody listens, don't worry about it. You keep listening, keep praying, because I've had people, when people aren't in your shoes, they don't know, and they can't understand what you're going through. So you're going to have a lot of people, there's nothing wrong with her, just like the doctors, there's nothing wrong, because you haven't been through it. They haven't been through it, so keep pushing and always put yourself first. Don't put yourself on the back burner. That's the thing, a lesson I've learned in that. And I am not healed. I am not through with my journey. I'm still in the midst of the journey, but I have more answers, and I realized, again, therapy helps. I was not an advocate for therapy. As Black people, we're like, I'm not talking to a stranger about anything. But post-surgery, the second surgery, just amped up and realized and something's wrong. No, I'm sorry, the first surgery. Like, once I knew, okay, it was, autoimmune issues for the first surgery, what caused my thyroid to blow up. And I was like, hey, I can control that. So food was a problem, air quality, things in the environment, stress, grief. Get a therapist, work through that, got a dietitian, work through the food, exercising, doing water things, just getting myself together. Everything was leading me to the right path, of course, until dealing with everything for the second surgery. And it's not working as easy, but still not giving up, still continuing to push, still continuing to put yourself first, and just being a continued advocate for yourself. I'm still in the midst of the journey, but taking time for myself, working on stress. Therapy helped me realize a lot of the stuff from the previous years, the stress level there was all still not dealing with the loss of my parents, grandparents, friends, cousins, aunties, uncles, all that grief that I had 13, 12, 10 years ago. I never dealt with it. And so therapy helped me work that out. So after we got that settled, boom, I didn't need therapy anymore. That was the problem. Me just not dealing with grief had caused so much of the other stuff, so much of the health stuff. Once that was clear, I was feeling great again until the second surgery. So whatever you need, I'm still talking to a therapist because I have my grief things I'm dealing with now, because this is a whole new level of grief, the people I've lost this year, and, the car accident, we talked about, me and you talked about when you were saying there are things that are grief that we don't think of. It's not just losing people, it's loss of the job, it's getting hit and losing a car I had just gotten, even though, I didn't get to enjoy it in the beginning, getting it fixed and waiting and dealing with the trauma from, being an accident or accidents. So still in the walk. And like I said in the beginning, just figuring out what this second chapter is because I'm really focused on me. And it's taken a long time for me to get there. If something or someone is stressing you out, let them go. Leave it alone. Let it go. And if you don't want to let it go, use a long handled spoon with it. Put some distance in between it. Put some distance in between it, them, whatever it is. If it's job, take your PTO, take your time off because I've been at too many jobs where somebody has passed on at the job, outside of the job, and somebody is in that chair next week or the day after, so you're just a number. So don't let anybody, and I'm talking to myself too, because you can't let anybody or anything stress you out. And that's job, that's, family, friends, people on the street, anybody. You really got to take care of your health because we only have one, and you can't get it back. There are things you could start doing to your body that are irreversible. So take care of the health while you have it because it is a gift. We really, really got to take care of it. So I'm still in my process. I'm still in my walk. The walk is even harder now. This is probably the hardest, position I've been in with health right now. But I was told by somebody, I don't know, you're always so happy. You're always so this. And you have to choose joy. You have to choose to smile. You have to choose to get up sometimes when you don't feel good. But you got to keep pushing, to get to the answer on the other side. Same thing with grief. Each day is going to be different. Each, you may, I always say grief starts out, there's a lot of tears and a lot less joy. But as time goes on, you'll eventually get to the point where those tears are more laughter because you're going to remember more of the good times than the bad times. Continue to push on your health because, you'll get to those good times. It's going to take a lot of work. And like you said, don't give up on finding a doctor, educating yourself and knowing, your body. And like you said, inflammation is just a massive amount. I didn't even think about, it attacking your heart, but I know it will attack your joints and, everything else. Just getting inflamed, you literally blow up. And it's not because of food. It may not be because of exercise, but it's a big, big trigger. Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. For me, grief. I've lost a lot. I've lost. I think Lynn and my dad. I lost my dad when I was 6. Lynn and my dad are the top tier
Yeah.
of people that I've lost. I lost aunts and people, whatever, but just the closeness and the bond that I'm always and will be a daddy's girl. That's, even if he's gone. But Lynn used to come spend the night. She was my sister, literally. She used
Yeah.
to spend the night with me all the time. And we would go back to her house and we'd be like, can she spend the night again? Get her clothes, walk back to my house. She was always there. And me and my sister never wanted her to go home.
Go
She
home.
was she was
I
the
know.
middle child. And
Mhm.
it was like, can she spend the night? And then, I think sometimes her mom's like, well, she's been over there, I'm pretty sure your mom's tired of her or whatever. And mom was like, oh, it's okay. Because I used to sleep with when my dad died. I
Mhm.
used to sleep with my mom. I used to watch scary movies and I would be scared. So I would sleep with my mom. So, of course, my mom was like, yeah, she can stay because
Yeah.
that gets her out of my
Out the
head.
bed.
So yes, she
Exactly.
can spend the night. If she need to move in, let her move in. Get her out of my bed. I don't.
Bed. Uh huh.
So she was there all the time, and we just, as you get older, you kind of lose connections or whatever. And reconnected right when she had Vincent, and
Mhm.
we found each other on Facebook, and we immediately exchanged numbers and started talking, and literally started talking every day. And it was like I got my sister again.
Yeah.
So every day we were talking, texting, good morning, everything that was going on when she, fell on her hard time. Um, I wanted my mom to come for my MPH graduation. And I was like, can you come? And she's like, well, girl, I don't have the money. I'm not working. I was like, I didn't ask you that. What I asked you was, can you
Yeah.
come? Can
Mhm.
Vincent's father watch him? And I will pay for you and my mom to come because my mom has never been on a plane before. And she was like, okay, I got you. I said, you don't have to worry about anything. This takes you time away from what's going on there in Shreveport. It's we're gonna have fun.
Mhm.
She comes here. We have the she meets my friends, and one of the friends that she met, she actually passed in 2022 of lupus. Um, she comes here. We go to the casino. This chick wins $600,
Ah, of course.
and
She's
she
always the
hands
winner.
me the voucher for the money, and I was like, "What is this for?" And she's like, it's
The
yours.
trip.
She was like, it's for the ticket. I was like, girl, I didn't ask you to pay me back.
Mhm.
You need this more than me. My friends jumping at me like, why you taking her money? I'm like, I didn't take her money. She gave it to me. So I'm trying to give it back. She doing this, like, no. And I'm
Of course,
like,
when.
what? Why, and then I started getting sick because I'm stressed out because I had just started working at the health department in July and my graduation was on in September. I was a contractor. I didn't get paid for sick time. So I'm taking this time off. Um, and I got sick. So luckily, my ex showed up for me, make sure Lynn was good, my mom was good, because I was really sick, and that's what happens when I'm stressed out. I get sick. It turns to a sinus infection, then walking pneumonia. So people,
Oh
please pay
wow.
attention to that. Um, she had, we did other little stuff and when we got ready to leave, we went to Red Robin. I showed them around where the now commanders, they were the Redskins then, now they're the commanders, where their field was, and took them to the airport. And she, I was like, thank you so much because I appreciate you coming. Like, I had the best time ever. And we talked about trips and doing things and all that. Literally,
Yep.
this year, we were planning because her son's birthday was the 26th. Mine was yesterday, the 27th, hers today. We were planning to take a trip to celebrate his 18th and, just our birthdays together. Um, no, unfortunately, it didn't happen, but just her excitement. She's like, "Oh my God, Vincent almost out the door," and just her
Mhm.
excitement. It was
Mhm.
just, just that, and just how she was showing up for me because I knew how much we are like, but how much we're different because I am fire. I am like I'm explosive.
Yeah.
Now it takes a lot for her to get upset, and I'm at that
Oh
point
God,
now.
yeah.
It does take a lot
Mhm.
now, but before my temper was really bad. For her, it takes a lot for her to get
Yeah.
upset.
Yeah.
So she was my ice to my fire because she'd be like, "Okay,
Positivity.
stop." She's like, "Stop."
Exactly.
God's still in control.
Mhm.
So, God's
She's
will,
always gonna
God's
ground
way.
you.
And it was like, okay, you're right. Because she was that person that I could text and call, like, girl, da 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 da. And especially last year when I didn't have a place to go. My friends got me paid for movers, put all my stuff in storage. I didn't have a place to go. And I knew, she worked at the hotel and I called, I said, hey, this is what's going on. And she's like, okay, I will, pay for 2 nights. She said, I know how we are, meaning Capricorns, we don't like to ask for help outside of inner Capricorn or somebody we're really close with. She said, I need you to ask one of your friends if you can stay with them because I don't want you sleeping in your car and I don't want you out in the street. And I was like, she said, do that for me, please. So I asked my friend Robin Flemings. It was on Labor Day, and I was like, "Hey, this is what's going on. Is it, okay if I stay with you?" And she was like, "Yeah, girl, that was because at the hotel I really wasn't sleeping. I was doing Lyft and Uber the whole time,
Mhm.
and I felt like I was wasting her money. But I stayed with Robin and her fiance Courtney until I think March or April because I had to go to Louisiana in March. My mom had a heart attack, pneumonia, blood clots on two blood
Mhm.
clots on her lungs. And this is in March. And this is probably when she got diagnosed that I flew. I had my stop in Texas. And she's so worried about my mom because it was that
Mhm.
connection. And she's like, I said, I'm in Texas. And
Yeah.
she was like, okay, okay. She said, well, let me know when you get to Shreveport. I was like, okay, let her know, get to Shreveport or whatever. I call her and she talks to my mom. My mom tells her she loves her. And she's like, I love you too, Miss Mickey. And I fly back to Dallas and I'm telling them like I'm, heading back or whatever. And we had a really bad storm in Maryland. And then I want to say when it started to get to the midst of April, I started hearing from her less.
Mhm.
And I'm texting her and I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm not hearing anything back. And I'm like, are you okay? I'm like, what's going on? Are you okay? And then she responded back. She's like, I'm okay. And I was like, is it your tummy? What's going on? She's like, I'm okay. I'm okay. And I said, well, girl, you about to make me jump on the bird's back and fly to Dallas. And she
Mhm.
laughed. She was like, LOL. She sent like the laughing gif. And I was like, something don't feel right.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, something's not right. Something's not right. And I'm dealing with my own stuff where I'm
Mhm.
in deep depression, trying to function, suicidal ideation, grief of losing everything. And my Facebook and Instagram gets hacked. I didn't have my original Facebook. I don't have the Instagram anymore because whoever hacked it put some inappropriate stuff on there. So they just completely took it down. And I had to start a new Instagram. And I wasn't really going on my new Facebook page like that because I had texted her on Mother's Day, and it was so weird because she typically texts back like, "Yeah, girl, me and Angel going to do that, celebrate Mother's Day." That's typically her
Yeah.
response. And this time it was nothing. I was like, something's not right.
Yeah.
And I something said that Monday, go on Facebook. Like I said, I hadn't been on this new page, and I see your post with you and her, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't feel right. And immediately it was like I knew, but I didn't want to know. That piece of
Yeah.
me was just being ripped apart. And
Mhm.
then I saw your story and you had the song from Set It Off, and I'm like, okay, this, no, no. And I sent you a
Yeah.
message and I said, where's Lynn? And you were like, she's gone. And I was like,
Yeah. That was the only word I could use when people ask, like, she's
and
gone.
I was like, she's gone. And my thought was, what was it, the stomach? You
Yeah.
know, where was Vincent? How is he? Those type of things were just coming up.
Mhm.
And then you and I started, messaging. You were telling me everything or whatever. And I knew she had the surgery because she told me she had the surgery and she told me about
Yeah.
everything. Because one thing about us Capricorns, we'll tell you, but we'll tell you in our time and when we're ready to tell
Exactly.
you. And
Exactly.
she
Exactly.
was like, because she didn't want me to worry and she knew how much I cared and loved for her. So
Mhm.
and then I felt like it was her because I know how you are when it comes to, okay, I got to get everything done, I got to do it. And I felt like it was her that was like, ask her if she needs help. And I was like, okay. I was like, Angel, what her stuff? What are
Yeah.
you doing? Do you need
Yeah.
help? Who's
Yeah.
showing up for
Yeah.
you? Who?
Why?
And you were like, well, it's kind of me and just Chris.
Mhm.
Okay, no, we're not doing that because you just lost your best friend.
Mhm.
You told me you had lost somebody prior. You were in a car accident. No, we're not doing that. So
Yeah.
I don't live there, but I know people there.
Yeah.
And we're gonna
Yeah.
find some resources and services to help you out.
To
So
help
let's get this
get
done
going.
the best as
Yeah.
we could. And literally, I told you I was watching that movie Straw. I'm telling you, don't ever
Oh,
watch
yeah.
any
Yeah. Don't watch it when you're
anything.
grieving.
Don't watch when you're
Yeah,
grieving
when
and
you're grieving.
you already in that situation that character
Mhm.
is in. And I'm watching that movie and I am bawling. I am
Mhm.
crying. I'm like, God, why? And the
Yes.
and it was like Lynn and Mama Elaine is my ex's mother, and I love this woman so dearly. She sent me a voice prayer because sometimes she'll just text me prayers, but this day she sent me a voice prayer. And then Lynn comes to me when I tell you my cousin be cousining, she be showing up.
She
She
will show up
had
just when you
on
need her.
she had on this white suit, pantsuit, and her hair was curly. And she sits on the bed and she's like, I'm always with you. And I was
I've had
like,
a similar dream.
yeah, and
That line.
yeah,
Mhm.
and I was like, it's not the same. It's not the same. You're
Mhm.
not physically here. I can't text you. I can't call you. I can't talk to you. She said, who said you can't talk to me?
Mhm.
You can
Exactly.
always talk to me. I'm going to communicate with you some way, somehow. I'm always
Yes.
with you. I fought to be here. You're trying to fight to check
Mhm.
out. I fought.
Yes.
You got too much living to do. You got too much gifts to give this world.
Mhm.
Let it go. God is in control. It's His will, His way, and His timing.
Yep. We
And
always say God is in control.
I was like, oh my God, in literally the same connection with this voice prayer from
Mhm.
Miss Elaine to me in the same alignment. God is in control.
Mhm.
Let go and give it to God. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. And I've told you several times how she's shown up in cars where I've seen fingerprints and I know it's her hand because I know her hand. And it's
Yeah. She had a
nobody been
significant.
in the front of the car on the inside with their fingerprints. It was like literally a hand. And I was like, okay, Lynn. And I started seeing
Wow.
more rainbows. I think I
Mhm.
seen after her passing literally five full rainbows, not half, a full rainbow. And I was just like, okay. And I said, I have to start looking at it. She left an amazing part of her for both of
Mhm.
us. Her son, Vincent, who turned 18 on the 26th, amazing young man. She left, and he looks just like a light skinned version of her, which is hilarious. Because I told her I would always say, "You gave birth to yourself the same month, same sign. You gave birth to yourself. You gave birth to him." But and sometimes he'll text me, and it's literally her talking
Exactly like
to
her.
him.
Yes, he has
And
her mannerisms with
it
it.
is it was one day I was not having a great day, and he texted me and he said, "I will always love you." And I was like, this ain't you. This is
Mhm.
your mother coming
Mhm.
through you.
Mhm.
And I was just looking at it, and I'm like, because the crazy part is, I've known Vincent since he's one through talking to his mom. I've never physically
Yeah.
met him.
Mhm.
So, some people might be like, well, why wouldn't he say that? Because this is our first time communicating since
Yes.
her death, because I've never met him. I would be on the phone and she would ask him stuff, whatever. We would talk
Mhm.
through her. So
Yeah.
we are building a relationship now that she has passed. So it's not something I wouldn't say he wouldn't say that. We
Mhm.
do have love for each other, but it's clearly, I know when sometimes he'll say
Yeah.
something and I'm like, that's your mama.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's your mama. So
He's just like that. So yeah.
that has definitely been the holidays have been hard. My grieving process, where literally my therapist has said, you have to allow yourself to grieve. And it's literally like this: when you're tired, your
Mhm.
body's going to shut down. When you're grieving, you are going to have those emotional outbursts. Literally, I was
Yeah.
driving
Yeah.
Uber or Lyft, and I would just start crying. A
Right.
song would come on, it would trigger it, and
Mhm.
I'm like,
Trigger.
just like, and it's just
All the
coming
time.
down, and I'm just like, okay. And she's right. You have to, because I think for us growing up in the South, you bury them and you move on.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
reality is you
Yep.
miss them. You wake up,
Mhm.
you're like, okay, this is somebody I can't talk to anymore. This is
Yeah.
somebody that I can't text anymore. This is somebody I can't visit anymore. This is somebody I had vacation plans with that
Yeah.
we're not going to take that vacation. It's that process of
Mhm.
what do you do next? I literally went to physical therapy. I think it was that Tuesday after she died, and the physical therapist loved her to death. And I was like, she was like, "What's wrong?" I said, my cousin who was like a sister passed away," and she said, I said, I'm like, do I delete her number? Do I keep her number? What do I do? Because now you're like, well, I can't call her, I can't text her, so why
Mhm.
should I keep her number? And she said to me, I appreciate it. She said to me, she said, my grandfather died and I still have his number in my phone. And she
Yep.
said, I kept his number because it reminds me of the memories
Yeah.
of being able to.
Oh yeah.
And it's still in there. It's not as hard as it was where, I would look for somebody's number and I'll pass through. Now is sometimes I'll stop and I look at the picture and it's literally that, but it's not how it was before where it was hard for me to even go past the L's.
Mhm.
And it was just, that. And I think it has become easier where I am able to have conversations with her and just, kind of laugh about us growing up or something, that we talked about or some funny meme she sent me or something that, we did. And being able to look at the joy in the time we had opposed to looking at it, because my mind immediately went to my dad died at 47. Lynn
Wow.
passed at 47. So for me, a fear did come up of I turned 47 this year. And it's
Mhm.
like, is that my chapter at
Mhm.
47? And then I had to correct myself of your chapter doesn't have to be their chapter. So don't
Mhm.
start creating those stories in your mind that this is your chapter.
Yeah.
So I had to get out of that, but I would definitely say, it was definitely a hard time, hard experience, a hard thing to deal with. And I definitely will always love and appreciate and honor her. Um, definitely appreciate you for showing up for her during her time. And I know that was hard for you, seeing her health decline, going
Yeah.
from this vibrant person to
Yeah.
losing
That's hard.
all this weight.
Mhm.
And I know because I've never personally seen somebody
Yeah.
decline to
So
that.
sad. And so fast. Fast. That's the
Yeah,
other part.
yeah.
Yeah. That part too, and that I think, because like you said, Slim was a ball of sunshine. She's always the personality. She's always the one who, I remember we did a wine tour for my birthday, and everybody on the bus, she's on the bus. Come on, everybody, let's get a picture. She's taking over the radio from the bus driver, and the bus driver, Mr. Such and Such, what about this? And she was just a ray of sunshine, and she lived every day like that. I had started the last couple of years calling her Mother Teresa, and I'm like, of course, nobody is above God. But I'm like, girl, you're a saint. I was like, you're just so, how can one person give of themselves so much to everybody else? Because I laughed after she passed because I was like, my best friend. And then I may be talking to somebody else, and they're like, my best friend. And then just like this person, she's my best friend. And it's like she was everybody's best friend. She treated nobody no differently. And because of that, she was always there for me. My hardest time when I spoke about surgery and everything I was dealing with. Some days, I wake up and I can hardly walk, and I don't feel like going anywhere. And you're sad, and you're frustrated. Like, what's wrong with me? How can I get better? And it's Lynn, calling. Hey, girl, what you doing? Oh, not feeling good today. Let's go to such and such. And I'm like, girl, I don't feel like doing that. And she's like, come on, let's go. We can do this. The boys can do this. And it was a blessing too. God knew, not just she moved here for her son to have better opportunities and to grow and to, not be in Shreveport and go through anything. So her moving here for him a better opportunity was a blessing for me too, because I was going through some of my hardest times physically, and she's right there. And it's like, okay, got to have surgery. Boys, get this recliner up to her bedroom. Move that TV over here. Like, we got to get her situated. Here's your goodie box for your recovery. She even had a bell in there, like, hey, ring this bell so Chris can come and help you if you need anything. So those type of things. And she's always been that way. I've been stuck on the side of the freeway close to here, Texas, and there's nobody to come help me. And she got her baby and came on down from Louisiana to Texas, got us on the side of the road, brought us all the way home, and then wouldn't stay, drove all the way back. So Lynn was just, for me, for everybody, just such um, a soul. Her spirit. People at her job, it's like they would skip their managers to go to Lynn. Like her presence. Um, I say we don't know how long we have here. We don't know what our purpose for here. She knew her purpose, and I feel like God gave us this angel for 47 years. She wasn't supposed to be here that long, and man, did she leave her mark on everybody's life she touched, because everybody speaks highly of her. It's like she didn't have beef with nobody. If you didn't like her, something's wrong with you, because Lynn was the sweetest, kindest, most giving person ever, always helping. So she would help, but she didn't like to take help. I don't either, but she was worse than me. And it's like, Lynn, if you need help, let me know. So when she would take my help, it's like, yes, I finally get to help you. Like, let me help you the way you help everybody else. But it was a joy. And so with that, she gave me, I feel like it was a gift. Um, you know, during her surgery and everything, like you said, she shared all the doctor's information, and we listened to, she recorded things, everything for proof, and just so she could go back and make sure she didn't miss anything, and she shared it, and we talked about it, and we Googled, and we looked up all these things. And getting down to that point, we're just trying to figure out, well, how did it, happen so quick? How did this happen so quick? But in going in that, she, being Lynn, trying to do it herself, um, a friend threw me a birthday party, and I knew what she was going through, but nobody else really knew. One person um, kind of figured it out. They just have a discerning spirit, and they was like, something's wrong with Lynn. They knew about the surgery and that the cancer had been taken, and they had dealt with a lot of cancer in their family, and they saw her, and she wasn't the bubbly Lynn, but she wanted to be there for me. And they were like, "Is the cancer back?" And I was like, "Yeah." So that person figured out, but nobody else noticed. I'm like, how can everybody not notice? This isn't Lynn bouncing around, but I wanted her there. I wanted everybody who was there. I wanted them there because I knew what she was battling with, and it just sets in your mind how short life is. Of course, I didn't think she wouldn't be here this year for my birthday in 2026 or her birthday this year because last year was her first time really celebrating. She's always like, "Oh, it's my birthday. I'm just happy to be here." But she purposely set things up for us to do. She was like, "We're going to take these boys to Louisiana and we're just going to hang out. We're going to the casino. We're going to the club. We're going to eat. We're doing this." So she really celebrated herself for the 47. And I kind of feel like it was her first and her last celebration because she wanted to do it so big. And she had so many plans, like you said, with your vacation for your birthday. She's like, "We're going to do this summer for the boys. We're going to do a cruise in December for the boys." And it was all these for the boys. She was always looking out for everybody. So when she came to my party, that was my gift. I wanted her to be there. I wanted to have that moment with her and my other friends who came as well because life is so, so short. And that next weekend, I'm like, "Hey, I'm coming over." And she's like, "Oh, I don't feel too well. And, just let's wait till next weekend. We'll do something with the boys next weekend." Then the next week, she started trying to brush me off. I was like, "Okay, I see the sign. Independently, and I'm going to take care of myself." And I truly believe if she had still been in Shreveport, she could have kind of, shut the door and kind of ignored everybody. Nobody's just going to be like in 2 months' time, like, "Hey, Lynn, hey, I'm coming over." But because we were here and the boys really pulled us together even more because it's like, let's do something this weekend for the boys. Take the boys here and let's have a drink while we're here. That put me in her life a little bit more because we were doing something with these boys every weekend. So you can't just brush me off because I'm right here and I could pop across town. And that allowed me to see she's trying to handle this herself. And I'm like, I talked to her and I was like, "I don't care what you're doing. I'm coming there Friday or Saturday. You pick the day because I'm coming. And I'm going to keep coming and I'm going to be there for you on through this." And I was like, "So you pick the day, but I'm coming. You're not going to push me off another weekend." So she's like, okay, let's do Friday, and we can do this, and that for the boys. And I was like, "Stop worrying about doing stuff for the boys. Let us just come be there." And so I did, and that was kind of her allowing me to help her. And that was the biggest gift. It's like that's the biggest gift I've been able to give her because that was hard, like you mentioned, because we all know Lynn. And that's the super hard part because I feel like everybody saw Lynn on Facebook. They saw that mermaid dress, the sequin dress, and second chance at life, and Lynn just being bubbly on her video, not seeing that a week later, she was physically going through it. Her body had already changed, and then her decline, and this and that, and going through everything, being further declining and not being able to do things she would normally do and just fighting. And the thing that hurt the most is her smile. She stopped smiling. There was still joy in her tone, but the smile was gone. And I think, everybody got to see Lynn, the bubbly Lynn, and then they were at the funeral. And I had to battle with bubbly Lynn, fighting Lynn, sick Lynn, declining Lynn, dying Lynn, gone Lynn, funeral Lynn. And I had such a battle with that. And I think that kind of, like I said, in September, once she came to me in a dream, kind of similar to yours, but she she came and I was like, wait a minute. We were talking and I realized like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be here. I thought you were gone. And she's like, I was. And I was like, well, how are you here? And she's like, I came back. I'm always here. And she gave that message. I'm always here. I'm always around. And I woke up and I said, that's kind of the thing that I battled with because I saw all those stages. It made it kind of hard not to remember Lynn because we have decades of friendship, almost 4 decades of friendship and constant friendship. So I can't forget that Lynn. But when you throw in Sick Lynn and this person that you didn't see before, Lynn has never not been joyful and happy and bubbly, and she was fighting. And you're praying. It's like, Lord, you can't take this soldier. Like, she is a soldier for the Lord. Like, he's not gonna take her. And seeing her go through all that after everything, I battled with which Lynn, which Lynn am I grieving? I can't, this bubbly person, I can't grieve that Lynn. The Lynn that's always been there, the Lynn that's always joyful, or is it the Lynn that I saw getting sick? Because during that, she wouldn't have, and that was another thing I battled with. She wouldn't let me tell anybody. And so that was hard because I'm like, everybody's going to be mad at me. But it was her wishes, and I had to honor it. I didn't understand it, but I had to honor it. But I spent days like, Lynn, let me tell. Please let me tell this person. Please let me tell that person. You're so kind. You help everybody else. Let's get your village, around and get you situated and taken care of. And she's like, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. And we'll talk about it, turns into a week, and then the next week, and the next week, and so on and so forth. But again, not wanting anybody to kind of almost like take her burden. And then also, she's still going on the information she was told. She's fighting this, She's going to eventually get past this. That's what she thought. I'm going to get past this, so I'll tell them about the testimony. I'm not going to worry them now. Everybody will be here. I'm okay, And that part was hard because I have to keep her secret, and I'm not a secret keeper. So that was hard. But again, it was her wishes, and we just knew she was going to make it too. So that part is really hard, battling with that, a whole nother stage of grief. Because like you said, I've never watched anybody in that kind of process decline, because cancer is a monster, and it takes and robs, and like she said, it takes a strong person. You have to fight like you never fought before when battling with cancer. Fortunately for my dad, he was diagnosed with cancer. It was caught early. Treatment helped everything, and he didn't go through any of that. So that part, I hadn't experienced it. And then to experience it with somebody who is like your family, your sister, her son and my nephew grew up together. They were known each other since birth. He was at my nephew's first birthday party in her tummy. And she used to say, I was like, they are like cousins. She's like, they like brothers. Because when they see each other, they just hug each other like, I hadn't seen you in 2 years. It's like, you just saw him last month or last week. But they have that love, too. And it was just a really hard battle to determine who am I grieving, because it didn't feel like all of that was Lynn, because you don't see Lynn not vibrant. You don't see Lynn not happy. So this person who was struggling and fighting and never giving up, not one single moment, and who was still positive through every moment, who was still selfless through every moment, who didn't think about herself in any of it other than I'm fighting and God has it, and she continued to be there for everybody else down to the last moment. She was still creating moments and peace for everybody. But to battle with all these different Lynn's that I got to see, how do you get past that? How do you deal with that? And it's a journey. It's still a journey. It's helped some with time, but I really, really struggle with that because it's like, it almost feels like that friend is so far away, kind of like when my parents passed after years. It's like, oh, God, do I remember their voice? How did their voice sound? How did their laugh sound? You're trying to grasp these things, and it's kind of like that. Which Lynn am I grieving? It's like, I don't know. You don't know, but I do know that I carry that positivity that she's always given. She's helped me stay, on the positive. I've always tried, but to have somebody who was walking that path to be your support system, it's amazing. And it feels like with all she did for me and all we did together and vacations and trips and these boys, like, how does she have time to do that to every single other person that she knows? Because everybody has these stories. Everybody feels like, Lynn was my best friend. She did this for me. She did that. We did this. We did that. And it's like she was. It's like, how can one person be that for so many people? I know if I'm being my best to 3 or 4 friends, I'm like, ooh, that's exhausting. But she was it to everybody, not just her friends, but her family, her coworkers, her employees, the people on the street she met. And she was always, that's why I called her Mother Teresa. We did a pool. I remember one time she told me a kid was drowning in the pool, and she dove in and saved the kid. We were at another water park, and a little girl fell off. She's always the savior. She grabbed the baby and got him up. She was always on alert and always trying to help people. And I think that is missed because I'm sorry, but we don't get people like that. People aren't that selfless with everything, with themselves, with their time, with their love, with their attention. And I think we had just a real gem. And then she left us the gift of, if you were ever around her, if you've ever been around her, you got pictures with her. So she left all these memories and things, not just events, but she left us our own little individual memories and pictures with her and times with her and experiences with her. And, she's always going to go out the way to be there for you. I know she was so disappointed because she was sick and she wanted to take, she's a photographer. She wanted to take Chris's graduation pictures. And she had this whole plan of what she was going to do, but she couldn't because she got sick. And I took them myself. I was like, girl, they're not up to your caliber, but these are them. So she approved them. I was like, okay, thank you. But just for her to spread herself so freely, I'm like, that's nothing but an angel. God gave her to us for 47 years. There is no perfect person, but she was just a wonderful soul. And, have so many memories. We'd be on here for 10 more podcasts if we were to share all the good things Lynn did and all the great memories. And we did that this weekend. I had a dinner for her son for his 18th, and everybody came. And, just that love in the room towards him, it's like a little piece of her was in everybody, and I really hope he felt that as well. But taking care of her and having those moments to the end, and, it helps. It never makes anything better because she's gone. But it did help. It did help, and time heals everything. There will never be another Lynn. Nobody can replace Lynn. But she made her mark. She left her mark, and she left us her amazing son. And like you said, he is her because he will text and say things just like she was. He'll use the emojis she uses. So she's wrapped up in him and with us, constant. And it's, I don't know, it's just, she was just such a wonderful person. And I feel like, she's my sister because I had a really hard time when she first passed. Like, why is it so hard? I've lost friends. Why does it feel so much like my parents and my grandparents? And I realized because she's family. She's been there. We knew each other in second grade, but we really, really got close around 12 or so. And since 12 or so, it's not like we haven't lost any contact. If she's working this week and I hadn't heard from her by Thursday, I'm like, hey, girl, you better say something, and that's like a sister. She's wrapped in my life. We had quotes that we'd say, and nobody would understand them but us. And the boys would be like, why do y'all do this? Why y'all call each other Becky? Why do y'all say this word? And they're like, what are y'all talking about? And I'm like, that's just like your sister who's a couple months apart from you. Y'all are close in the house and you learn these things. And I think that is just irreplaceable, and it's a blessing. And her allowing me to help her through the end, it was a gift to me. That was her gift to me because I always got on her, let me help you, let me help you. And I know a lot of people who knew Lynn were like, if she had just told me, I wish she had told me. And I had to tell some stories, and I'd be like, Lynn, such and such text you, and they want to know that you're okay. And she's like, tell them I'm okay. And I was like, Lynn, and she's like, tell them I'm okay. And I had to, honor her wishes. And that's hard to do because she didn't deserve to be by herself. She deserved to be wrapped up, everybody being around her because that's the way she did everybody else. But even in that, we have to know that she loved us. She left her mark. She left us with amazing memories, amazing everything. She left us vents here to love on and on her behalf. And kind of take that with, what it is. It's a blessing. It's a blessing if you knew her. It's a blessing if you were around. It's a blessing you were her family, her friends. So I don't know. It's a hard one. Grief is hard. It's hard, and I said it before. When you start out, it's hard. You know, I can see somebody crying on TV, and then I'm crying. I'm like you. I could be in the car and a song comes on, and I'm bawling. Just any little thing. I could think about something, she said or did, and I'm bawling. But in it all, with time, those memories, those sad memories, that sorrow, it becomes, you start remembering the joyful times, the happy times, and there's more, the smiles kind of overwhelm you more than the grief does. And it takes time, and it may take years, it may take months. Everybody's journey is different, and there's no right or wrong way to grieve anybody. But she was just an amazing person. I just want to drive that home that she was an amazing person. Since we are talking about her and her legacy, just such a wonderful person to everybody. Whether you were family, friends, like I said, strangers, coworkers, she treated nobody any differently. She didn't. Superwoman.
Yeah, she came here, everybody fell in love with her, and she
Mhm.
kept in contact with them. But I can
Mhm.
definitely say with, her not wanting, because, part of me was like, I wish she told me when I flew into Dallas for my Connect flight. I would have canceled the
Yeah.
flight back
Yeah.
and just, sat with her for a
Yeah.
while. But I also know that she never wants anyone to pity
That
her
part.
or
That
feel
part.
sorry for her. And I understand that because that's not, you want to be seen and leave your mark as I was this happy,
Yeah.
positive, juvenile,
Joyful.
overflowing person, in which she was. She was very
Yeah.
loving and she was very caring. And, she's definitely always going to be missed and loved and thought about. And that's, it's hard.
Yeah. Very.
And like I said, it's gotten easier for me. Yesterday was kind of hard because she would text me and she would
Yeah.
say, happy birthday. And I would text her back, happy birthday, Eve. And she'd be like, girl, what you gonna do? And then I tell her whatever. And
Mhm.
then she'll text me at some point. She'll be like, have you started? What time? What, you having fun? Is
Yeah.
it good?
She's the birthday cheerleader.
And then the next day I'm like, what you doing? And all that. So we did that. So through all of the grief, all of your experience, everything you've been through, what would you say have been the lessons? What would you say has starting to shape you with seeing things differently and overcoming and as we're moving into 2026?
The lesson goes back to something she always said, and that is live life to the fullest. She always said that, and that was it. Live life to the fullest. We aren't guaranteed any time. I'm not where I want to be right now. There's so much stuff I'm looking forward to doing that health is holding back, but that doesn't mean I have to stop everything. So live life, push each day, make the most of it. Let anger go, let stress go, let resentment go. Let all these harsh feelings go, and don't let the things that are causing those affect you. Also, if you need to let those things go, those people go, let them go. Let it go. And it doesn't have to be permanent. It may be temporary, but take care of yourself because when you're down, when you're going through, you have to put your oxygen mask on before you help anybody else. You can't help anybody else if you're incapacitated. So take care of yourself and kind of help yourself. And that's the lesson in it for me is again reflecting on her word, living life to the fullest, taking care of myself, kind of operating in the process of joy like she did. Like I said, my days, I don't feel good most of the time, hardly ever, but I always try to operate now. She's helped me with that. I'm smiling because you can't see a person go through what she went through And even though she didn't have a physical smile, her inner smile was still there. She didn't stop fighting. So that has helped me to know I can't stop fighting. I can't stop showing joy. I can't stop believing that God is over all this and He will handle all this. And I just got to keep doing my part. So my lesson is to not give up on myself, not stop fighting, to always take me into consideration, whether the doctors believe it, whether anybody understands, to continue to push forward with that, and to show myself a little grace and mercy sometimes. We're not perfect. We're going to have off days, good days, bad days, but just don't give up when you have that down day. Wake up the next morning and start anew. So just being kind to myself, not giving up on myself, and continuing to push through. That would be my lesson. And again, I give her props. Of course, God gets all the props, but I give her props because that's how she operated. So I have a physical memory and depiction of just seeing physical joy, regardless of what you're going through, regardless of how much pain she was in, she still operated in joy. So if she could do it dealing with what she dealt with, I can too. I can keep operating and pushing forward and continuing. I'm going to continue to learn lessons in life. It doesn't stop with this, but right now I know I got to give myself grace, continue to push and operate in a spirit of joy even when I don't feel like it, because you could wake up and have the most horrible day, but if you put a smile on your face and you operate in joy and you have a joyful spirit, it'll uplift your spirit. You'll start believing you are joyful for that day if you give yourself a moment. And what was the other question?
So the other question is overcoming. So, you've experienced a lot and going into overcoming everything you experience.
Okay. I think you never fully overcome it. It's a daily process. Um, there's parts of it I'll overcome. I don't think you ever get over grief, but I think grief turns into something different. Um, like I said, you go from crying all the time or feeling how you're feeling to that grief becoming more joyful. I got to the point where instead of crying for my dad's birthday, I started doing little things like, what did daddy like to eat? Okay, I'm having that for his birthday today, or getting a cupcake. I'm celebrating with my dad with this cupcake, or my mom, with this whatever she likes. I start doing things like that, and those kind of turn those tearful holidays and birthdays and things like that into joyful, because you don't want those people to become that stigma or that grief. You don't want them to be represented by something so tearful and so sorrowful. That does not mean that you don't cry and you don't grieve and you don't grieve how you need to grieve. If you're a crier and you want to cry every day, you cry every day. But you have to eventually get to the point where there's joy in that memory and you're honoring their memory, and it's not sorrowful. They weren't here sorrowful and down, so you can't do that. And a lot of times I think about, everything I go through and everything I deal with. It's like my mom and dad wouldn't want me like this. Lynn wouldn't want me like this. My other friends, my granddad wouldn't want me like this. So it's like, push on, operate in a spirit of joy for them as a representation of them, not just all sorrowful. And talking about them and having a moment, I still talk about her and I'll start crying. I still talk about my parents sometimes and I'll start crying, but it becomes fewer and far between as time goes on, and as you begin healing, you start kind of showing the joy, and you remember the good things. Just like we were talking about her, we talked about the sad times, but we also talked about her joyful good times and her wonderful spirit. So you have to kind of blend those two together, and enjoying that when you get to those joyful moments, that's where your healing starts. So that's where you start to overcome that grief and overcome, any depression or, stress or whatever feeling you're having. But it takes time. Everybody's process isn't next month I'm good, I'm over my grief. Some people may take 6 months, some people may take 6 years, some people may take 60 years. So don't let anybody tell you how to grieve, how long to grieve, what you need to do to grieve. Take your own process, but always remember that you don't want that person to become that sad memory. You don't want their legacy to be sadness and depression and all that. You want it to be joy. You want to be joyful, them to leave a wonderful legacy. So we have to operate in that as well. So I think overcoming takes time. It's always going to be a process. There'll be parts of your journey that you overcome, and it's over. You're done. You did well. With my health journey, I hope that I get to the point. It's going to take a minute, but I hope I get to the point where I'm done with it. I'm healthy, and I can just proceed forward. I overcome it. I hope I get to the point with grief where there's a lot more joy than sorrow. Then that may be my point of overcoming, but it doesn't stop the process. You're always growing. You're always working on yourself. Um, it doesn't have to be a complete stop. I overcame it. I'm done. You can overcome it, and it can come back later, and you're back on the journey again. So it's a constant path, but always give yourself grace. Regardless of how you feel, regardless of what you're going through, give yourself grace. You're feeling bad. Some of the things that you discussed as well with June, battling all the things that you had to go through this year, you know, you can't beat yourself up. You didn't beat yourself up. It took work. It was hard. It's not easy to overcome anything. It's not easy to get to the other side. But what you have to do is you can't give up. You can't give up. If you give up, it's over. You can't overcome anything you gave up on. But as long as you keep pushing, you'll get to the other side. The other side doesn't mean the finish line. It may mean, you got your life jacket, you can stay afloat, and you can keep on swimming. You can keep moving forward. So, or like you said, what you say, batting the lemons, hitting those lemons with a baseball bat. Like you keep fighting, you keep pushing. Overcoming doesn't have to be a finish line. It may continue. It may start over. So the main thing with overcoming is never giving up. Don't give up. Whether that finish line comes or not, keep going. Keep pushing. It's a journey.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because it's kind of like the term people say, healing. Healing is not overcoming the healing, I believe, is in the same category. And healing doesn't happen overnight. Even if you think you fall down and you scrape your leg or your elbow or whatever, just because you put all the medication and a band-aid on it and you wake up, it's still
Exactly.
not going to be healed. It
It's
takes
not
time
gone.
to heal. So I would say for people, look at it like that. Okay, I scraped my knee, I got a paper cut, whatever you got, it doesn't heal overnight. It takes time. And that's one thing I had to give myself a lot of grace, a lot of mercy, and let go of control,
Yes.
understand that God was in control. And that's something that she would hammer in my head all the time. And I'd be like,
Make
girl,
up
I don't
your
want to hear that
mind.
no more. I don't want to hear it.
God is in
But
control. God is in control.
she was right. And I had to learn to ask for help.
Mhm.
So that's even if you're having a conversation with God, you're praying to God for something. Look at that. You're asking Him for help. You're saying, God, please help me be able to pay my bills. That's asking for help. God, please, send me finances. God, please help me with housing. God, please, that's asking for
Yes,
help. And I had
exactly.
to understand God puts people in my life to go to ask for help, letting go of that control. So that was something that I had to overcome, is letting go of control, asking for help, learning to be vulnerable, not just with other people, with myself, because it was literally like, you fine, girl. All right, come on, keep it moving, keep it moving. And
Yep.
it was literally, no, you're not fine. No, you're not okay. No, you're numb. You're cutting yourself off. You're not connecting with you. You're not connecting with God. You have everything, this noise going on in your head, and you're not paying attention to anything. All your focus is money, money, and money, and God will provide for you. No, it's not saying, oh, sit back and just wait for God.
Yeah.
It's saying, talk to God, let go of control, and let Him open doors for you. That's what I'm saying. So I don't want nobody saying, well, she said, no, that's not
Yeah.
what I said.
No.
What I'm saying is, because when you're chasing money, it's kind of like the what's that? State Farm, one of those commercials where the guy has the dollar and the girl keeps trying to grab it and he's like,
Grab
you
it.
almost got it. That's literally
Yeah.
the same thing. It was like, you almost got it, but you don't have it because you steady trying to chase something that's out of your reach.
That's it.
So that was something that I had to learn. I would definitely say this year has been a learning process of being able to let go, literally let God in, literally trust the process of how things look, um, opening myself up. And just because I have a tendency where most women do, we focus on everything else except for ourselves, and we don't really pay attention to what's going on. And I had to realize, no matter how that look, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are upset where I'm like, I can't deal with you.
Yeah.
I can't because I'm dealing with my own shit.
Myself. Yeah.
So I can't open the door for your shit when I'm dealing with my shit. So, and they can take it however they want to take it. I've lost a lot of friends the last 2 years because I lost everything, but it also helped me that God showed me everybody can't go with you. That was a season.
Exactly.
And no matter how that looks, it can be a person passed away, it can be a person you just don't talk to anymore. I had to be okay with, okay, and it
Yeah.
used to be hard for me because I would try to hold on to every little fiber. I would try to hold on to the little string that's hanging on their shirt. I still got you, but it was
Yeah.
no. I
That
had to
season is
learn
over. That
that
season was over.
season is over, and I started learning how to look at the positive instead of the negative, meaning not like, oh, they did da, da, da. You know what? I had the greatest time. We were great
Hmm.
friends at that time in that
Yeah.
season. We just outgrew each other. And I will always have love and respect and wish you all the best, but we're just not connected in that way anymore. And that is absolutely okay. So I would say that is one of the biggest lessons. And grief never goes away. My dad's 40th anniversary was literally on November 2nd.
Oh.
Yeah, it came up for me because I remember being that 6 year old at my uncle's house and that phone rung and a piece of me died.
Hmm. Yep.
Never, wasn't the
Replace
same.
it.
Didn't I had seen a lot of death, kind of like you when you were talking about how your family died. My grandfather, my mother's father died, I think I was 4, and some uncles died and stuff, and then my dad died, and I saw death. I didn't really understand and comprehend it at such a
Yeah.
young
Young
age.
age.
My understanding was he's not coming back. And my anger with God is, why did you take him? And my therapist, I told you, my therapist had me write a letter from my dad to me.
Hmm.
And just, it was literally the power of what was coming through that pen and paper, where he said to me, I would never leave you, but I have to take accountability of I didn't wear a life jacket, which would have saved my life. But
Hmm.
I tried to swim because he couldn't swim. So he was like, I was fighting to get to you. It was a guy that tried to save his life and put a pedal out, but he couldn't reach it. And I've been in a situation where I've almost drowned, and you panic and you're fighting
Yeah.
against the water and you're pushing yourself down, which
Down.
causes you to drown. So just and I'm crying, and he's like, I love you and I will always love you and be there. And he's like, every time you look in the mirror, you're seeing me because you are me. And I was telling my therapist, I read it to my therapist, and she was like, oh, wow. She was like, how do you feel about that? And I said, I know he would definitely fight and do anything for me. I never questioned in my mind that he gave up fighting
Yeah.
to come back to me.
Hmm.
So, that grief never goes away. And, I will always honor my dad. I will always honor her. And me and a first cousin reconnected when I went home to see my mom. And I've learned so much about my dad and my paternal grandparents because they were deceased before I was born. And I just told her, I said, every time I talk to you, I feel like I get a piece of him and I learn more about him. And he
Wow.
was the way, he was just like Lynn. He
Mhm.
showed up so much for his family in any way, anything. And that's something my cousin always said. My cousin Benita will always say, your dad loves his sisters and his nieces, and he showed up for us in every way possible. And that's why those two are hard for me because they were so much alike
Yeah.
in spirit and heart of showing up. So I definitely, definitely thank you for sharing your story because that's not easy. Talking about health, talking about not being heard. And there's so many Black women,
Yeah.
Hispanic women, women in general that
Yeah.
say the same thing that they are ignored, they're not heard. They don't, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Again, as I say, nobody knows your body like you know your body. You are the only one who knows what you're feeling and what's going on. And no doctor can tell you, no, you don't feel that.
Mhm.
If okay, if I don't, let me go on to somebody else who knows I feel
Who
this.
knows?
So
Exactly.
again, if it's something they're not doing, because you're right, a lot of doctors now don't check your ears, your nose, your throat, or whatever. They
Mhm.
just run tests. They do a strep test, they do a COVID test, they do a
Mhm.
flu test. Okay, how about you look in my throat and tell me if I got a
Yeah.
sore throat or a sinus infection or an
Exactly.
ear infection? If you feel that you need that, ask for it. Don't just be like, oh, well, no. Speak
Mhm.
up. Fuck they damn degrees. Only you
Exactly.
know your body. So speak up and say, please check my throat. Please check my ear. Please check my heart. Please run this test on me. Please do this. Trust me, if they don't, you can ask for another provider, especially in urgent care and emergency room, because I've
Yeah.
done it. So ask for somebody who is going to hear what you're saying. Don't look at it as I'm undereducated. You can come in there with the worst clothes on. It don't fucking matter. They
Mhm.
still have to treat you like a human and provide the same
Exactly.
services as they do with somebody that comes in with a three-piece suit. So always consider that with yourself. I am good enough. I deserve to be heard and I deserve the best medical or any life treatment that there is.
Exactly. So true.
So yeah, so please do that.
I
Speak up for
must.
yourself. Please fight for yourself. So, again, I thank you so much. And again, Lynn, you were so much to so many. We love you. We miss you
Yes.
so much. And I
Happy
know you was
birthday.
happy birthday. I know you was rocking out. You got all the majors up there with
All the
singing,
clothes, the
all,
outfits
all
flashy
the
today.
outfits, and you have Angie Stone, D'Angelo, you got
Mhm.
Aaliyah, you got Michael, you got
Miss
Prince. They up
Ruby,
there. You
Mr.
got your
Hope.
mom, your dad, your siblings, your
Yes, your
nephews, your
dad, my
nieces.
parents,
Yeah,
everybody.
you
My
got
God.
everybody up there. So I know y'all was rocking out today. So
Mhm.
yes, we really appreciate you and we love you so much. And
Yes.
happy, happy, happy birthday.
Happy
So
birthday.
until
Birth
next
to
time.
heaven.
Yes, yes, yes. So until next time, this is Mind, Health, and Wellness with LeJune. You can find me at LeJuneSingleton.com. Do you want to provide your social media for people to reach out to you for any questions?
Um, yeah, I'm on Facebook, Angel Malone. Inbox me, DM me. I'm also on Instagram. What is my Instagram? That is a shame. I think it's still found under Angel Malone. I have a different tagline. I think Heaven Sent, but Angel Malone is under it.
All right. And you can find me at LeJune Singleton on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Yeah. I forgot. I'm like,
All of them.
all of them. And
All of
again, thank you so much. So until next time, this is Mind, Health, and Wellness with LeJune. You guys be safe and get ready to bring in the new year with a bang.